A very good evening to all of you. So, again, we are here in this weekly discussion on the organon of medicine. We have kept a fixed day, Wednesday, but sometimes due to some kind of interventions, we sometimes have to either postpone to next day or postpone to next week because one thing is are other classes or the other lectures which are already going on, and we have introduced this one. And sometimes there are some personal things. I hope you don't mind this kind of uh, change of schedule. So last time we have done till aphorism 35. So we'll start from the 35 because it is basically connected with the aphorisms which we will be going to do next. So let's start with it. So last we have done that how the medicines, when they are similar, how they produce changes in the vital force and the organism, and how they remove the disease because of their similarity. So in the last part, we have talked about the medicinal power to cure. eh, That one thing is that it is stronger than the disease, and then it is similar to the disease. So when these two things are combined, then the medicinal power to cure, we can say that this medicine has the power to cure. So it is basically based on two things. The thing is, one thing is that it should be stronger than the disease, and the other is that it should be similar to the disease. So next part is where Dr. Hahnemann, because he has talked about the similarity. Till now, he has talked about the similarity. Now he also wants to tell us about the dissimilarity. So in order to illustrate this, we shall consider in three different cases as well. What happens in nature when two dissimilar natural diseases meet together in one person? So he said that we will take three different scenarios, three different cases when two dissimilar natural diseases, not the artificial disease, but the natural diseases, two kind of dissimilar natural diseases, when they come in one person, how they react in that person, as also the result of the ordinary medical treatment of diseases with unsuitable allopathic drugs. And with this scenario of two dissimilar natural diseases, he said that I will also talk about how this ordinary medical treatment of diseases with allopathic drugs, what is the result of it when we see, which are incapable of producing an artificial morbid condition similar to the disease to be cured, because they are allopathic drugs. They basically, um, in for example, if a patient is having headache, in allopathy we give a medicine to reduce headache. We don't give a medicine to produce headache. So it creates a kind of contrary or the opposite action. So it says that these drugs, these medicines, they are incapable of producing an artificial morbid condition which is not similar to the disease, whereby it will appear that even nature herself is unable to remove a dissimilar disease. And he says that even in nature, not in the medicine part, but the nature also cannot remove a disease when a dissimilar disease is produced in the vital force already present by one that is unhomeopathic, even though it be stronger. Just as little is the unhomeopathic employment of even the strongest medicines ever capable of curing any disease forever. So, Dr. Henneman, in these aphorisms, he's trying to make us understand that to remove a disease, to cure a disease, whatever we are employing, the medicines which are employing, that should be homeopathic. Means that should be able to create a similar disease in the patient. And a contrary effect which he is giving from the, he will cite some examples when we'll go through the aphorisms, because my target today is that we should complete till aphorism 42, because these all things then will be clear if we do it in a continued manner. So what Dr. Hahnemann is trying to tell us here is that one is a way where a similar disease can be produced. One is a way where a dissimilar disease can be produced. And what are the effects on the body when both of these conditions happen? So first, he will try to tell us about what happens when two dissimilar natural diseases or diseases produced by some kind of medicine, they basically come in the body. Okay. So here he will take three scenarios when the dissimilar diseases meet in the organism. The first scenario will be, I am just giving a brief before going into the aphorisms. When the old disease is stronger than the new one, the dissimilar disease, when a new disease is coming, but we know that the old is basically more stronger than the new one. Second scenario is when the new disease is stronger than the old one. These three scenarios are for the dissimilar diseases. We will talk about similar afterwards, once these three scenarios are basically done. And then when both are of equal strength or almost equal strength. So there is the first scenario. He is in Organon, it is written as this one, the Roman numeral 1. If the two dissimilar diseases meeting together in the human being be of equal strength, or still more, if the older one be the stronger. So if they are of equal strength or the older one is stronger, means the which was already there, which was already present there previously, it is stronger. The new disease will be repelled by the old one from the body and not allowed to affect it. The new disease will not be allowed to affect the body. And this very commonly we have seen in our day-to-day practice, in our clinics, in our lives also. I will go to those examples. First, we will complete the aphorism. So he's saying that when there is already a disease going on in the body, but this disease, which is already going inside the body, is of stronger strength. And the new one, which is coming, is of weaker strength or of almost equal strength. Then the new one will be repelled. Means the new one will not be allowed to act on the body because there is already a stronger affection present there. So a patient suffering from a severe chronic disease will not be infected by a moderate autumnal dysentery or other epidemic disease. Patient who is already suffering from severe chronic diseases. Um, my father, Dr. Mavi, he used to say this thing a lot to some patients, that sometimes when the patients will come with some chronic disease and they will tell my father that, doctor, after the medicine, like 1 month, we had fever. We had fever. And you know, after how many years I got fever? After 25 years. So you always used to tell them that this is a very good sign. You are lucky that at this age you are having fever. Because when stronger chronic disease is going on, these small diseases, they don't basically affect because of the already present stronger disease. And that is why we also say that it is a very positive sign if in these chronic cases, some slight small things start coming, because this shows that now the disease, the older disease, it is basically becoming weak. That is why the small, weaker diseases, they have this power to affect the human being. So when these chronic diseases are going on from a long time, some diabetes is going on. Most of the diabetic people, they don't uh, have this fevers or some cold and cough. Very few will be there which will be affected by this seasonal changes. So a patient suffering from severe chronic disease will not be infected by a moderate autumnal dysentery or other epidemic diseases. If there is an epidemic going on, The people who are already having chronic disease, some chronic heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, some other kind of myalgias or some, they will not be affected by these kind of diseases. The plague of the Levant, according to Larry, there was an author, because in these aphorisms, Dr. Hahnemann will cite some authors, their works also, that in this book, in this journal, this has been written by this author. The plague of the Levant. Okay, so there was a place, Levant, where the plague happened. According to Larry, Larry was the author or the observer there, does not break out where scurvy is prevalent. So the plague didn't affect where the scurvy was already going on, because scurvy is a more stronger disease. And persons suffering from eczema are not infected by it. And all those persons who were already suffering from eczema, the plague also didn't affect them. Rachitis, Jenner alleges. So Jenner says that rachitis prevents vaccination from taking effect, because vaccination is a very low powered dissimilar disease. So the people who have rachitis, the vaccination will not affect them. Those suffering from pulmonary consumption are not liable to be attacked by epidemic fevers. The people who have pulmonary consumption or the tuberculosis, like some diseases like that, they will not be attacked by epidemic fevers. The epidemic fevers don't affect them. Of a not very violent character, according to von Hildenbrand. Okay, so this is seen that, so the first aphorism is about the natural diseases. If there is a natural disease going on, which is stronger, already going on and which is stronger, then the weaker natural disease will not have the power to affect the human being, because it is of weaker nature. The dynamic of action is weaker. Now he will talk about the medicines. So also under ordinary medical treatment. Whenever he says ordinary medical treatment, he says about the medical treatment which was prevalent at his time, which he has commonly called as allopathy. An old chronic disease remains uncured and unaltered if it is treated according to common allopathic method. He said that similar thing is seen in the allopathic method, that the disease remains uncured and unaltered if it is treated in an allopathic way, which is not homeopathic. And this is very commonly seen. All the allergies or skin diseases, everything, it remains always uncured. That is to say, with medicines that are incapable of producing in healthy individuals a state of health similar to the disease, even though the treatment should last for years and is of not too violent character. So all these medicines are basically incapable of producing a state of health, even though the treatment goes on for many, many years and it is of not violent character. This is daily witnessed in practice. Dr. Hahnemann is saying that this thing we see daily in our practices, and it is therefore unnecessary to give any illustrative example. And I'm not going to give any example about this because we are already seeing this in our practices. So until and unless a medicine is not acting in a homeopathic way, in a similar way, if it is producing a dissimilar state, a state which is not similar to the already going on natural disease, it will not cure that medicine. Oh, sorry, that disease. It cannot. And he said that by experience, we see this thing in our day to day practice, in our daily, when we see the patients, when we see what treatments they are getting, we see this thing that, the things are not being solved. So now he gives the second example, aphorism 38. Or the new dissimilar disease is the stronger. Now he's saying about the new disease which is coming, a dissimilar disease which is coming, it is stronger. So what happens? In this case, the disease under which the patient originally labored, being the weaker, will be kept back and suspended by the ascension of the stronger one. So it will be suspended, it will be suppressed somewhere inside, it will be kept back. And that is the reason when we give a right homeopathic remedy and the new symptoms they start going, the old symptoms will come back because they were suspended by a stronger disease. The stronger symptoms have suspended those symptoms. So when the stronger ones started going, the weaker ones will start coming back. Return of the previous symptoms. So many of these things will become clear when we go through these aphorisms. That why it is written, why it happens, why it goes like this. So will be kept back and suspended by the accession of the stronger. So as long as the stronger one is basically affecting the organism, the vital force, the weaker old disease will be suspended. It will not be cured. It will not be cured until the later shall have run its course or been cured, and then the old one reappears uncured. So if the later one, the new dissimilar disease, has run its course or it has been cured by some medicine, then the old one reappears. Like I told you, that once you cure and these new symptoms they start getting cured, the old ones will reappear. So from there we can make out that it had never left the body. It was always there. It was always there. It was just suspended. It was just palliated. Two children affected with a kind of epilepsy remained free from the epileptic attacks after infection with ringworm. So the children who had been having epilepsy, when they were attacked naturally, ringworm basically happened to them. These epileptic attacks were suspended. They didn't got any epileptic convulsions during that time as long as they were infected by the ringworm, tinea. But as soon as the eruption on the head was gone, the epilepsy returned just as before, as Tulpius observed. So as long as the ringworm was there, they didn't got any epileptic convulsions. But as soon as the eruption got better, it was gone. The epilepsy again returned. So this gives us the idea of what happens when new dissimilar disease, which is stronger, it affects the body. The itch, as Schaff saw, disappeared on the occurrence of the scurvy. So the itch, there was itch, but when the scurvy came, the itch disappeared. But after the cure of the latter, means scurvy, it again broke out. So also the pulmonary thysis remained stationary when the patient was attacked by a violent typhus. So in a patient who had this pulmonary thysis, pneumonia, remained stationary. It remained stationary. It stopped spreading. It stopped getting aggravated when the patient was attacked by a violent typhus, typhoid fever. When the patient was attacked by violent typhus, the pulmonary thysis, it became stationary. It stopped aggravating, but went on again after the later had run its course. Okay, but it started aggravating again once the typhus has completed its course. If mania occur in a consumptive patient, a patient who had tuberculosis, if he goes into a state of mania, if mania happens to him, the thysis with all its symptoms is removed by the former. So the mania, it basically removes all the symptoms. This also we have done, we have taken this example also when we have done this psychiatric diseases, the cure of the psychiatric disease in our global classes. So when the mania comes, the thysis with all its symptoms is removed. But if that go off, if the mania goes off, if the mania gets cured, the thysis returns immediately and proves fatal. So the thysis will come and it might even cause the death of the patient when it comes back. When measles and smallpox are prevalent at the same time and both attack the same child, the measles that had already broken out is generally checked by the smallpox that came somewhat later. So when the in the epidemics at that time there were a lot of epidemics. So when measles and smallpox, they at the same time they attack the children, or it attacks the same child, then the measles which has broken earlier was checked, stopped by the smallpox that came somewhat later. And nor does the measles resume its course until after the cure of smallpox. And the measles, they don't resume its course or they don't come back until the cure of smallpox is done. But it not infrequently happens. Not infrequently means, but it frequently happens that the inoculated smallpox is suspended for 4 days by the supervention of measles. But if the smallpox is inoculated, given vaccination is given of smallpox, now naturally when the smallpox comes, it is of greater strength. But when you give an inoculation, when you give vaccination, it is of weaker strength. So in this case, the measles wins over the smallpox. The measles becomes a more stronger dissimilar disease. So he's giving a very good examples about the intensity, about the potency, about the power, that how when we give inoculations, when we give medicines of the same things, the power is basically controlled. But it okay, so it not infrequently happens that the inoculated smallpox is suspended for 4 days by the supervention of the measles. So if a smallpox inoculation is given, the effect of the inoculation is suspended for the 4 days if the measles happens at the same time, as observed by Manget, after the desquamation of which the smallpox completes its course. And after the desquamation has happened of the measles, then the smallpox will start coming back and will complete its course. Even when the inoculation of smallpox had taken effect for 6 days and the measles then broke out, the inflammation of inoculation remained stationary and the smallpox did not ensue until the measles has completed its regular course of 7 days. So he said that even if the smallpox inoculation has taken 6 days and the measles has broken out, so even after 6 days, if the smallpox is given 6 days, it does not become that much strong as much the natural measles is. But when naturally smallpox comes, then it is more stronger than the measles. So even after 6 days, if the measles broke out, the inflammation, it starts becoming more stationary and will not ensue, it will not continue until the measles has completed its regular course of 7 days. So after the measles has done its 7 days course, after that the smallpox will again going through whatever, wherever it was stopped. In an epidemic of measles, that disease attacked many individuals. On the fourth or fifth day after the inoculation of smallpox and prevented the development of smallpox until it had completed its own course, whereupon the smallpox appeared and proceeded regularly to its termination. The true smooth erysipelatous looking scarlatina of Sydenham. So there was a scarlatina which used to happen in a place named Sydenham with sore throat was checked on the fourth day by the eruption of cowpox. So in that scarlatina, it was had a look like an erysipelatous eruption, erysipelas, which had sore throat. So on the fourth day, if a cowpox infection happened or the eruption of cowpox was, happened, then the scarlatina will become suppressed or checked. It will stop, which ran its regular course and not till it was ended did the scarlatina again establish itself. But on another occasion, as both diseases seemed to be of equal strength, the cowpox was suspended on the eighth day by the supervention of the true smooth scarlatina of Sydenham, and the red areola of the former disappeared until the scarlatina was gone, whereon the cowpox immediately resumed its course and went on to its regular termination. He said that, but on many other courses, the scarlatina of Sydenham, it was basically when that happened, then the cowpox was suspended. It was stopped, discontinued because they seem to be of equal strength. The measles suspended the cowpox on the eighth day. When the cowpox had nearly attained its climax, the measles broke out. So on the eighth day, when the cowpox was already near the end, the measles broke out and it stopped the cowpox from completing its course. The cowpox now remained stationary and did not resume and complete its course until the disquamation of measles had taken place, so that on the 16th day it presented the appearance it otherwise would have shown on the 10th day. So because it was suspended, the cowpox, so it did not show its appearance usually which it shows on the 10th day. it was suspended 6 days. Means that appearance was seen on the 16th day as Cortum observed. So from all these examples, the main thing to understand is that when a stronger dissimilar disease basically affects the body, the weaker, which is already suffering from a weaker dissimilar disease, it basically suspends its action. It will not cure, it will not eliminate the disease, it will just suspend it for some time because it is of stronger dynamic affection. Even after the measles had broken out, the cowpox inoculation took effect, but did not run its course until these measles had disappeared, as Cottum likewise witnessed. I myself saw, then Dr. Hanuman says that my own experience is also this, that myself saw the mumps, it is mumps, not the numps, immediately disappear when the cowpox inoculation had taken effect and had nearly attained its height. So a patient, they had mumps, and when they were given the cowpox inoculation vaccination, they immediately disappeared. It was not until the complete termination of the cowpox and the disappearance of its red aureola that this febrile tumefaction of the parotid and submaxillary gland that is caused by a peculiar miasm reappeared and ran its regular course of 7 days. So after the cowpox, that inoculation and the termination of the eruption has happened, the eruption got cleared. After that, the mumps, they came back again, and then they ran its regular course. So now the adherents of the ordinary school of medicine saw all this for many centuries. He said that the people who are adherent, the people who are practicing the allopathic medicine, they have been seeing this from so many centuries, from so many hundreds of years. They have been observing this, they have been noting this down, because all these things were noted by those physicians. So Dr. Name is saying that all these things are being noted and they are seeing this thing happening. They saw that nature herself cannot cure any disease by the accession of another, be it ever so strong, if the new disease be dissimilar to that already present in the body. He said that nature, from the nature we can learn how the processes are going on. So nature herself, being the all powerful, the nature is all powerful, being the all powerful, even the nature cannot cure the disease. Even if the disease is stronger than the original one, producing the more stronger disease, which is stronger than the original one, because it is dissimilar, it cannot cure the original malady. It cannot cure the original disease. What shall we think of them? That they nevertheless went on treating chronic disease with allopathic remedies, namely with medicines and prescriptions capable of producing God knows what morbid state, almost invariably, however, one dissimilar to the disease to be cured. He said that now what should we think of the all these people, that they have written all these things and they have been prescribing God knows what prescriptions, and what kind of state it produces in the human being. We don't know. We don't know what kind of symptoms these medicines create in the human being. So just with that ignorance, they have been treating the chronic diseases with all these allopathic remedies, almost invariably, however, one dissimilar to the disease to be cured. But that was sure that it was dissimilar to the disease to be cured. Because if it would have been similar, then it would have cured it. And even though physicians did not hitherto observe nature attentively, he said that okay, if even the physicians have not observed the nature, okay, we can see that they might not have observed it, they might have been, their concentration might not have been there to observe the nature. The miserable results of their treatment should have taught them that they were pursuing an inappropriate, a false path. Said that the results, the kind of results they were getting, they should have taken a teaching from that, that whatever this path we are taking, whatever the medicine, These are not helping the patient. On the contrary, they are producing dissimilar diseases in them, which if become more powerful, then they will start causing their own symptoms. So he said that they should have taken the lesson from the results, the miserable results which they were having. Did they not perceive when they employed, as was their custom, an aggressive allopathic treatment in a chronic disease, that thereby they only created an artificial disease dissimilar to the original one? So that when they were giving the medicine, didn't they saw that when they are giving the aggressive allopathic treatment in chronic diseases, they are creating an artificial disease which is dissimilar to the original one, which as long as it was kept up, merely held in abeyance, merely suppressed, merely suspended the original disease, which later, however, always returned and must return as soon as the diminished strength of the patient no longer admitted of a continuance of the allopathic attacks on the life. So that from this only they could have that as long as I'm giving this aggressive allopathic treatment, the symptoms are for some time they are suppressed because the dissimilar disease which I am producing with these remedies, it is more stronger. So from here comes the understanding that why these medicines, when we give some diabetic medicine, some antihypertensive, some painkillers, some steroids, why they act for a small time? Why we have to continuously give them? While on the contrary, homeopathic medicine is very least required. I have so many cases which were prescribed only once for 1 year, 2 year, no, not even one single repetitions. So in that case, we see that we have required the minimum medicine. In this case, we require that we need excessive of medicine. And over the years, the medicine, it keeps on increasing. It never decreases. I always ask my patient, I always ask the students, okay, when we are studying the organ, okay, you don't agree with the aphorisms, no problem. You should not. You should not until it comes from your own experience. Then you start agreeing with it. So I always ask them that, okay, tell me one thing. Look around in the family, look around in the relatives, the people who have been taking some medicine for some disease from some time, be it thyroid, be it some skin disease, be it some allergies, be it some painkillers, anything, any medicine, whichever they are taking. Over the past years, has the medicine increased or decreased? Just see this thing. So they will always, whenever the students they come to me first time, second, then the next day they will be that when we thought about it, when we asked about it, we have only seen that the medicines have always increased, either in the power, either in the number, either in the dosage, they have always increased. Because until and unless we are trying to cure with dissimilar disease, and then I tell them that okay, now when they are with me for 6 months, 7 months, when whatever time they are with me, then I show them that okay, you have taken this case when you have come. See how many times we have given medicine. One time, two time, very small dose, single small dose. So from here we can make the distinction that which is the wrong path and which is the right path. Why Dr. Hahnemann has to discover homeopathy and write all these things there. Because this must come from our experience. The belief in homeopathy or the belief in these words should come from our experience. And all people who are attending, I know, I think all of them personally, we have met somewhere in Thailand or India or somewhere in Brazil. I know that you are all doctors and you have seen this thing in your clinics. You have seen this thing happening with the patients. So as long as it was kept up, merely held in abeyance means it was just held, suppressed in the backwards, merely suppressed, merely suspended the original disease, which later, however, always returned and must return as soon as the diminished strength of the patient no longer admitted of a continuance of the allopathic attacks on the life. That is why the body also becomes immune to that kind of dosage, to that kind of attack, and the disease returns back. Thus, the itch exanthema certainly disappears very soon from the skin under the employment of violent purgatives frequently repeated. So, if there is an itch exanthema going on in the skin, earlier they used to give violent purgatives. So, it was a dissimilar, they used to produce dissimilar diseases, strong dissimilar diseases, because they have seen this thing that when this vomiting, strong vomitings, or this thing is going on, the patient is not thinking about itch or the patient is not itching. But when the patient can no longer stand the factitious, dissimilar disease of the bowels and can make no more purgatives, then either the cutaneous eruption breaks out as before or internal dysora displays itself in some bad symptom. So he said that the patient cannot, when the patient cannot take that kind of treatment for a longer time, so either the original eruption will come back or the sora will start displaying itself into some other bad symptom. Some other stronger symptom must be produced so that these things can be stopped. And the patient, in addition to his undiminished original disease, now the original disease is also undiminished. It is not that these treatments have, okay, diminished or cured that disease and given a new disease. No, that disease still remains there, but a new disease is all then added on it. Has to endure the misery of a painful, ruined digestion and impaired strength of food. Typhoids, I don't know about that, but in India, chikungunya and dengue, these two diseases nowadays they come up according to the seasonal changes or according to the months. And you will see very commonly when these diseases are treated with antibiotics, at least for 15 days. For 15 days, I have seen 10 to 15 days, the patient's digestive system gets so weak, they will no longer feel appetite. They will no longer be able to digest food. They will, they will feel that we feel hungry, but we cannot eat. The hunger is there, but we cannot eat. The taste is not there. When we put food, it comes outside, it produces nausea. So although with the undiminished original disease, the vitality of the patient is made weak. The patient becomes weak. The digestion becomes weak. The strength becomes weak. So also when the ordinary physician keeps, so also when the ordinary, just so also when the ordinary physicians keep up artificial ulcerations of the skin and issues on the exterior of the body with the view of thereby eradicating a chronic disease, they can never attain their object by so doing. They can never cure them by that means, as such artificial cutaneous ulcers are quite alien and allopathic to the internal affection. Many times the people who were suffering from some kind of epilepsy or convulsion, some ulcerations were made on the skin, deep ulcerations, or some issues, bloodletting, we call it bloodletting, they will let out the blood from the body, which will make the patient weak. And they thought that this could, for some time, you know, uh, suspend the epilepsy. But this is not a treatment. But in as much as the irritation produced by several tissues is at least sometimes a stronger dissimilar disease than the indwelling malady, the later is thereby sometimes silenced and suspended for a week or two. So for a week or two, the patient might not get any convulsion or this thing, but then it will be only suspended. And that for a very short time will the patient's power are gradually worn out. Epilepsy, suppressed for many years by means of issues, invariably recurred and in an aggravated form when they were allowed to heal up, as Pechlin and others testify. And this has been seen by the physicians. They have written it down that epilepsy was suppressed by for many years, but as soon as these issues or the ulcerations they were healed, the epilepsy came back. But purgatives for itch and issues for epilepsy cannot be more heterogeneous, more dissimilar deranging agents, cannot be more allopathic, more exhausting modes of treatment than are the customary prescriptions composed of unknown ingredients used in ordinary practice for the other nameless innumerable forms of disease. This is that all these practices are heterogenic, are exhausting, are allopathic, but the prescriptions which are given of the unknown ingredients, unknown in the sense we know that this is paracetamol, but we don't know what kind of symptoms it produces on the healthy human being. We don't know that. What kind of symptoms does a levocitrazine produce on the healthy human being? We don't know that. So to that, Dr. Hanuman tells that these are unknown ingredients. We don't know about them. Used in ordinary practice for the other nameless innumerable forms of disease. And these ingredients, these prescriptions are used for the other chronic diseases which have so many forms and we don't know what they are producing. These likewise do nothing but debilitate. So he said it, but only one effect. Sorry. One effect we can see is that over the years, these medicines basically make the patient weak, the patient debilitates, and only suppress or suspend the malady for a short time. Or they just suppress okay, this is a very known thing. Even the patients say that as soon as we stop the medicine, everything comes back. Everything comes back. So from there, we understand this that the original disease is just suspended or suppressed till the medicine's action is going on without being able to cure. So they don't have the power to cure. When the medicine is given in a dissimilar way, it cannot cure. And when used for a long time, always add a new morbid state to the old disease. And if we keep on giving that for a long time, then a new disease will be added to the old disease, which we see, which is very commonly seen. This is a third scenario. Or the new disease, after having long acted on the organism, at length joins the old one that it is similar to it. So now the new disease is acting from a long time. It is coming, going, coming, going. So what happens is that it joins the old one that is dissimilar to it and forms with it a complex disease so that each of them occupies a particular locality in the organism. So they form a complex disease and each disease, it basically takes their own locality, takes their own part, start acting on the tissue which they were supposed to act on, and they will not interfere with each other. But both the diseases they will keep acting on their localized parts, on the parts which are assigned to them, namely the organs peculiarly adapted for it. And as it were, only the place specially belonging to it, whilst it leaves the rest to the other disease that is dissimilar to it. So the new disease will take the part which was belonging to its sphere of action and leave the rest of the body to the other disease. Thus, a syphilitic patient, the patient who is suffering from syphilis, may become psoric and vice versa. Okay, so a syphilitic patient may become affected with the psora, or a psoric patient may get affected with the syphilis. As two diseases dissimilar to each other, they cannot remove, they cannot cure one another because they are completely dissimilar. It is not when the syphilis will come, then the sora will go, will be cured, and only the syphilis will remain. No, they will take their own parts. At first, the venereal symptoms, venereal means related to the sexually transmitted diseases. First, the venereal symptoms are kept in abeyance and suspended when the psoric eruption begins to appear. When the if a patient is already suffering from syphilis and a psoric eruption starts coming in the patient, so the syphilis will be suspended for some time. In course of time, however, as the syphilis is at least as strong as the sora, the two join together. That is, each involves those part of the organism only which are most adapted for it. So they will take, after some time, they will take their own parts and they will start acting on those parts. And the patient is thereby rendered more diseased and more difficult to cure. So when two dissimilar acute infectious diseases meet, as for example smallpox and measles, the one usually suspends the other as has been before observed. Yet there have also been severe epidemics of this kind, where in rare cases, two dissimilar acute diseases occurred simultaneously in one and the same body and for a short time combined as it were with each other. So he says that this is very rarely seen in the acute infectious diseases like smallpox or measles. When they come, they usually suspend, whichever is the stronger one will suspend the weaker one. Usually this is seen, but then there are some cases, very rare cases, where the two dissimilar acute diseases have occurred at the same time and they have taken their space in the body and they have acted at the same time on that particular organism. During an epidemic in which smallpox and measles were prevalent at the same time, among 300 cases in which these diseases avoided or suspended one another and the measles attacked a patient 20 days after the smallpox broke out. The smallpox, however, from the 17 to 18 days after the appearance of the measles, so that the first disease had previously completed its regular course, there was yet one single case in which P. Russell met with both these dissimilar diseases in one person at the same time. So that usually with the measles and chickenpox, it is seen that one starts showing its symptom when the other has become weak, or the other starts showing symptom when the previous one has become weak. But then there was one case where both these dissimilar diseases were seen in one person at the same time running their course. Rennie witnessed the simultaneous occurrence of smallpox and measles in two girls. J. Morris, in his whole practice, only observed two such cases. Similar cases are to be found in Attmuller's works and in the writings of a few others. So these phenomena, they have happened rare, but they have happened. Zenker saw cowpox run its regular course along with the measles and along with the purpura. So three diseases were going on at the same time. The cowpox went on its course undisturbed during a mercurial treatment for syphilis, as Jenner saw. So when the syphilis was going on in a patient where the mercurial treatment was going on, cowpox came and it ran its course, although the syphilis was already present, and it did not disturb the syphilis, and it went on completing its course, as Jenner saw. So third is when the two diseases which are almost of the similar strength and they have been acting on the body from quite a long time, they take their own parts. And this is also seen in the Dr. Hanuman will come to that this is very much seen when patient has long been taking some allopathic medicines, that the effects of that medicine, the artificial medicinal disease, starts taking place in the patient along with the natural disease which was already going on. But we will first complete the footnote to aphorism 40. From careful experiments and cures of complex disease of this kind, I am now firmly convinced that no real amalgamation of the two take place. He is talking about the sora and syphilis. the point where we talked about sore and syphilis here. So the footnote belongs to this part. So he's saying that from the my clinical experience and from careful experiments of the complex diseases of this kind, I am now firmly convinced. He said that I am convinced that whenever these diseases come, there is no amalgamation. They don't mix. They take their places, they keep acting, but they don't mix. Amalgamation of the two takes place, but that in such cases, the one exists in the organism besides the other only, each in the parts that are adapted for it. And they basically affect or exist in the parts which are especially kind of, it is their sphere where they have to act. And their cure will be completely affected by a judicious alternation of the best mercurial preparation with the remedies specific for the sora, each given in the most suitable dose and form. And if these kind of scenario is there, then he's saying that we have to give the medicine an alternation, a preparation of mercurial, merxol basically, and an antisoric. They have to be alternated to cure these kind of complex disease where the syphilis and sora, they are there present at the same time. I will not go much into it because the treatment of syphilis we will do when we will talk about syphilis. So I don't think it is a topic which should be discussed at this particular moment. Uh, Maybe we can take a different, because it is more of a subject of the book of the chronic diseases. So if we go on that direction someday, um, the God blesses us to do that thing. If because I have been having this that the chronic disease written by Dr. Hahnemann, where this theory of miasm was given in that book. So I have been told by many doctors and students to start something on that. So maybe someday when we will talk about it, maybe we will talk in detail at there. But he has given an observation which he has seen. So aphorism 41 in relation to the third observation where the diseases they basically take their places, much more frequent than the natural diseases associating with and complicating one another in the same body are the morbid complication resulting from the art of the ordinary practitioner. So, but he says that natural diseases which are associating and complicating one another, much frequent than that, are the morbid complications. The complications which are the result from the art of the ordinary practitioner, from the medical treatment which is being given. The complications which are produced by it, they are more frequent, they are more dangerous, which the inappropriate medical treatment, the allopathic method, is apt to produce by the long continued employment of unsuitable drugs. This long continued employment of unsuitable drugs, they when complicate with the natural disease, that is something which we need to see to the natural diseases which it is proposed to cure. Now, medicines, they are given to cure the natural disease. But what happens is to the natural diseases which is it is proposed to cure, there are then added by the constant repetition of the unsuitable medicinal agent, the new, often very tedious morbid conditions, which might be anticipated from the peculiar powers of the drug. Doctors, when they prescribe some medicine, they usually know that there might be some symptoms which will come after this medicine. You might feel acidity, you might feel some problems with the digestion, you might feel nausea after this medicine, you might feel some kind of vertigo after this medicine, you might feel weakness after this medicine. So I'm going to give you an extra medicine for that acidity, an extra medicine for that vertigo, an extra medicine for the nausea, an extra medicine for the constipation, an extra medicine for the weakness. So he's saying that we already anticipate, we know that this drug is going to produce some morbid conditions, some diseased states, which were not present there. But still, we give and we complicate the original natural disease. These gradually coalesce with and complicate the chronic malady, which is dissimilar to them, which they were unable to cure by similarity of the action, that is homeopathically, adding to the old disease a new dissimilar artificial malady of a chronic nature. So now these symptoms, they start becoming more permanent after the prolonged use of the medicine. They start becoming more permanent. They start becoming more chronic in the nature and give the patient a double in place of a single disease. So there was only single disease with which the patient has gone to a doctor to get cured, and he came back with two diseases. That is to say, render him much worse and more difficult to cure, often quite uncurable. So the complication becomes more uncurable. It becomes more difficult to cure them. Many of the cases for which advice is asked in the medical journals, as also the records of other cases in medical writings, attest the truth of this. He said that nowadays the journals at his time, the journals are written, the medical writings are written from where in which the advice is asked how to cure these cases, and you can see the truth of it. Of a similar character are the frequent cases in which the venereal chancrous disease, complicated especially with SORA, or with the dyscrasia of condylomatous gonorrhea, is not cured by long, continual, or frequently repeated treatment with large doses of unsuitable mercurial preparations, but assumes its place in the organism beside the chronic mercurial affection that has been, in the meantime, gradually developed, and thus, along with it, often form a hideous monster of complicated disease. So, in the venereal cases or the chancrous cases, which are complicated with SORA or with the psychosis or with the syphilis, so unsuitable mercurial preparations are given. Mercurial preparations were given not seeing this SORA part or this psychotic part. And this mercury preparations which were given, they started making a chronic affection on the patients that has been in the meantime gradually developed. The chronic mercurial affection has developed in the patient, and thus, along with it, often form a hideous monster of complicated disease. And it becomes a monster of there are already two, three dissimilar disease going on, and one more was added to it under the general name of masked venereal disease, which then, when not quite incurable, can only be transformed into health with the greatest difficulty. So it becomes very difficult if it has not become already incurable to treat such cases back to health. Footnote to Aphorism 41. For mercury, besides the morbid symptoms which by virtue of similarity can cure the venereal diseases homeopathically, has among its effects many others unlike those of syphilis, which if we employed in large doses, causes new maladies and commit great ravages in the body, especially when complicated with SORA, as is so frequently the case. So the same mercury can cure the venereal disease homeopathically, but when the syphilis is complicated with SORA, then that is why he told in the footnote of the Aphorism 40 that we have to give alternatively some antisoric. But if the mercury is given in very large doses, very frequently repeated, then it can produce many new maladies, many new diseased symptoms, many new states, which can weaken the body further, which can weaken the organism further. So nature herself permits, as has been stated in some cases, the simultaneous occurrence of two, indeed of three, natural diseases in one and the same body. This complication, however, it must be remarked, happens only in the case of two dissimilar diseases, which according to the eternal laws of nature do not remove, do not annihilate, and cannot cure one another. He says that in many cases you will see that naturally occurring diseases, the nature has permitted for the two dissimilar or three dissimilar disease to come in one and the same body. But because they are dissimilar, So they cannot remove one each other. They cannot annihilate, they cannot cure one another. But as it seems, both or all three means psora, psychosis, and syphilis. He's talking about all these three diseases that they are dissimilar, and that all these three can be seen in some patients. Both or all three remain as it were separate in the organism, and each takes possession of the parts and systems peculiarly appropriate to it, which, on account of the want of resemblance of these melodies to each other, can very well happen without disparagement to the unity of life. So, all these three diseases, when they come, they complicate the disease, no doubt in that. But when they're coming naturally, they will take hold of their parts, their systems, and they will keep acting on those symptoms and they will not amalgamate. But with the allopathic medicine, the symptom produced by they amalgamate. So we cannot get a clear picture about it, which disease is which. When the patient are taking some medicine from long time, like from 10 years. So in all those 10 years, in all those 5 years, there have many symptoms which have developed. So there is an amalgamation. We cannot make which are the natural disease symptoms, which are the symptoms of the medicine. Okay, we can anticipate some that yes, this is commonly seen, but then there are symptoms of the medicines which are uncommonly seen. So whether the natural disease has progressed or it is medicine, we cannot make it out. But in nature, at least, when these kind of dissimilar diseases happen in nature, they keep themselves separate. They don't amalgamate. They don't create a confusion for the physician. So this was all about the dissimilar diseases. So mainly, what we have to take out of it is from all these examples and from all these scenarios which Dr. Hahnemann has given to us in these aphorisms is that whenever a disease is to be cured, it cannot be cured by a medicine which basically produces a dissimilar state. Neither nature, he said that nature is the almighty, it has all the power. Even the nature cannot cure when it basically produces a dissimilar disease. If the dissimilar disease is stronger, the older one will be suspended, will be suppressed for some time. ऋषभ वीडियो आ रही है मेरी? ऋषभ okay, so it can be suspended for some time if the dissimilar disease is stronger than the weaker one, but it can never cure. That is what we have to take from these 6, 7, 10 around aphorisms. Right? So only those medicines can cure. Even now, next time when we will do, we will talk about the similar this thing that when the naturally similar diseases happen, then what happens? Because nature can also produce similar diseases. If it can produce dissimilar diseases in some people, it can also produce similar diseases. So next time we will talk about that in nature also and in medicines also. And what happens when the homeopathically, even in the nature, when the homeopathically the symptoms come, then what happens? We will take the examples of that also. And these the main thing was that the why Dr. Hahnemann many times he basically gets annoyed. I will annoyed is a very strong word. I will not use it. Sorry, but many times he feels that why it took so long for the physicians to understand this thing. They were writing about this thing in their books. They were mentioning it everywhere about the dissimilar kind of disease and the similar kind of disease also, and how it basically cured the patient. So why they didn't basically started working on this thing? Started finding the medicines which can, work in a similar way in the patient. So we will stop today's class here. I will request you all to, you have 1 week. So for some time, just think about the things which I have said, about the experience, which, like I told you, that look around yourself, look around the people who have been taking these medicines, whether their medicines have increased or they have decreased over the years, whether the symptoms have increased or decreased over the years. So, because when you experience this thing, that yes, this is true, then all the words which Dr. Hahnemann has said, they will become true. Because it is your experience which makes it true. Just because it is written in a book, just because it is written in something, I don't think we should take that for truth until our experience tells us. Like, I have been reading Organon from long time, but I started talking about it when I started seeing or feeling that yes, the things which are written, they happen. They happen. So it has to come from our experience. That is very important. Otherwise, you will believe from here, not from here, from the heart. We have two kind of belief system, one which comes from the intellect and one which comes from the heart. The actual belief is which comes from the heart, and it can only come from the experience. When you see patients getting cured, oh, few days back, me and my wife, Dr. Vidya, we were having this look over the some old cases of the patients. So then there were some cases, who came for the first time, and then they came for the second time, where they told that they were better, and then they never came. So, but they sent some other patient, and from those patients we come to know that that patient has become well only after he came once. Only he took one time the medicine, and the most chronic of the diseases, they got better. Like I have also told many times, there was a case of cancer who came once and then he never came back. But a patient, his relative came after few months, and I thought that he had cancer and he might be gone, because he was in a very difficult stage. So naturally that thought comes to you that, I gave the medicine for 15 days and he never came back. So naturally that thought, but after a few months, one of his relative came for the medicine and he told me his name. And I thought, how is he? He said he is well. He goes to his routine. He never had any problem after that. So even so from there you understand the aphorism too. The ideal cure. That is very rapid. Even these kind of cases, they get cured rapidly. So from there, you start believing, okay, whatever is written, that means it happens. That means it happens. So it has to come from your experience. Then these words will become true in your heart. Right now, it might be true in your mind, because one thing Dr. Hahnemann has written it, so we will not challenge it. We don't have the audacity to challenge it. Or I am speaking, then some of you might say that, okay, he is saying that it might be true, but it is from here. So I always give these small examples which we commonly see. Like I have given you this example of whether the medicines, they keep on increasing or decreasing. We all can experience to that. We all can relate to that. And in homeopathy, whether the medicine is increasing or decreasing. Because whenever the disease will decrease, there will be no need to give medicine. So this is a compass which tells us whether the disease is increasing or decreasing. Because if the disease increase, the medicine will increase. If the disease decrease, the medicine will decrease. So one thing I am saying about the homeopathic medicine, that we give the minimum dose. There are so many cases, one year, we have not even repeated a dose. And then there are patients who, after the homeopathic medicine, their allopathic medicine starts decreasing. I have so many cases whom the doctors have told that you have to take antihypertensives for whole life, and they have completely stopped it. No hypertension at all. I have patients who were told that you have to take anti-diabetic for the whole life, completely stopped, completely stopped, and they're healthy. And they become the thing is that it has become so much, the, has gone to our subconscious. That the patients, they become so surprised that we were told that we have to take this medicine whole life, and they become surprised that how how did this happen? Is diabetes gone? They will ask me, is my hypertension gone? But we were told that we have to take the medicine for whole life. How much we have made that thing to be true? We think that to be the truth. This is how much subconsciously we have been affected by this understanding, that we have been made to believe that you can never be healthy. This is what have been feeded in us by the medical system, that you can never be healthy in your life. Now this medicine is your life. You have to take it whole life. You cannot be that person who had diabetes. You cannot be that person who had cancer. You cannot be that person who had hypertension, who had some heart disease, who had some kidney disease. The thought of getting cured and healthy has been taken from us. And then we are sold health in the form of supplements. If you want to be healthy, take supplements. Take this supplement, take that protein, take the first. The whole so this will become a completely different topic. We will not go into that. But how we have become brainwashed. So now it is our duty, when we understand this thing, to again tell the truth to the patient, make them see the truth, let them experience this truth, that they can be cured. They can be cured with homeopathy. They can become a person who had diabetes. They can become a person who had asthma. They can become a person who had some skin disease. With that, I will take your leave. Thank you. Thank you so much for your patient listening. And we will meet again next week. Thank you. Thank you so much.